Hello everybody, my name is Mike Montgomery, and today I am super excited to share with you my 2-year home renovation. And this is that entire renovation in 50 minutes. It's Mike's first flip. In the before shots, you're gonna see that this house needed a lot of love, especially on the outside, but I don't wanna stick too long there. On the inside of the house, we opened up the living room, kitchen, and dining room by removing a dividing wall before I started my renovation. We're gonna be doing a lot in this kitchen. I wanna update these countertops, all of the appliances. The one thing I do plan to keep though are the cabinets. On this end of the house, we've got a spare bathroom that's very rough, and on the other side of the house is where the other bathroom and bedrooms are at. We've got paneling on all of these walls, which makes everything feel really outdated, and here you can see the second bathroom, which will do a lot of work in opening up. There's a total of 3 bedrooms in the house, and this one is the master, and the 2 spares are almost the same size. One thing you'll notice about this house is there is a different color on almost every wall, or at least in every room. Out back, there's a nice raised deck that I'm going to be restaining, and I do like the color of the house. It was painted just a year or 2 ago. Today is a very exciting day because the income property renovation begins now. Yesterday, the dumpster showed up, and this has a ton of room for us to throw away all of the old flooring, tile, backsplash, and any other old fixture we need to get rid of. This is a huge project, and the video is going to be a little longer than a standard Modern Builds video, so I'm going to try and keep the voiceover chill and a little laid back. I thought it was really funny removing the trim around the floor. I think they used a different baseboard in almost every room. And underneath the laminates, I knew that we had original hardwood floors, but I had to peel them up to see what kind of condition they were in. One thing I was surprised to find out though was the linoleum tiles in the kitchen and dining room. And these floors are super rough, so we're probably doing continuous floors, everything new. And this theory was confirmed once I got to the back bedrooms.
Oh boy, these floors are real rough.
All those dark spots are from pet urine. Gross. So the new plan is to remove all of the laminate, all of the linoleum, and put down new flooring throughout. And stay tuned, we're turning this toilet nook into a shower.
And I don't think that I'm going to be putting a door back here. In fact, I'll probably tear out this whole portion of the wall.
I'm taking this door out completely, but you can tell that it's really lightweight and flimsy, just like the rest around the house, so I'll be updating those just to make the house feel more fresh.
And I think that concludes day 1. We got the floors out, baseboards, doors, and the trim around those doors. Demo will continue tomorrow. See you there.
Day 2 is here, so is my dad. He's gonna give me a hand moving these appliances out. You ready?
Ready?
Let's do it. None of these appliances were broken, so we did our best to move these out as if we were moving them in. Having a big workshop on the property was great for storing things like this, also for building projects for the reno. And these appliances are still good, so we're gonna find some friends or family that could use these rather than just selling them on Facebook Marketplace. The scheme for the rest of the day was to start in the back bedroom and to clear out each room, get it ready as a blank canvas. In this bedroom, there was quite a bit of reclaimed wood around, but mostly I was tearing out the closets because the rest of the trim and doors had already been removed. I had a fun task in the hallway, which was removing all of the beadboard paneling to expose the drywall. We'll skim coat that later. I think that old school cabinets like this are pretty cool, but I'm gonna be converting it to a closet with a door, which means we didn't need these drawers. Basically, every light fixture and fan is gonna be getting replaced, so I took those down before commencing demolition on the kitchen counters. A big upgrade that we're doing for this house is installing solid surface countertops rather than the tile. It's gonna be a more even surface, and it's just easier to clean because there's no grout between the tile. And while we're at it, we're gonna be putting in a new backsplash. All right, so that drywall is gonna need repairing, but at least we got the backsplash down. Demolition really is a ton of fun. I just wish things went together as quick as they came apart.
There we go.
This countertop slab was really heavy, so I waited until my dad was off work and he swung by to give me a hand carrying it out to the dumpster. So far, it feels like I've taken a ton out of this house, but the dumpster really isn't filling up that much. Bah! Super pro. On the other side of the house, on one door, I found a set of trim that I had forgot to remove.
And this house is old. It's got so many flathead screws.
Taking out this medicine cabinet exposed even more ugly wallpaper that was underneath this paint.
Oh man!
And this sink was tricky to take out.
Ah, it's not porcelain, it's metal. I don't think it's gonna break the way I want. Dang it.
I figured it was easiest just to pull it away from the wall instead of breaking it, and then I moved over to the other bathroom where I removed this big build out by the vanity. I'm not really sure why people used to put these in, but it really makes things feel crowded. I also opened it up by removing this dividing wall between the window on the opposite wall and the vanity. That way that natural light can flow in. And to get in front of any comments, no, this isn't load bearing at all.
There's so much more room. The light can now come in from that window, through the wall, and fill up the space.
Another wall that I'm removing is the back wall of this living room closet, opening it up to the master bedroom.
I really thought that would go smoother. I'm glad I didn't get hurt though.
I'm absorbing all of this storage space into the master closet. And in the kitchen, I'm taking out this dividing wall so that my counters can extend past it. That way we can have an eat-in bar. There's electrical in this wall, so I turned off the breaker in the panel and then removed all of the plugs and snaked the wires back through the studs. I want to keep track of this because I'm going to be tying back into it later. This wall piece was the final big thing that needed to be taken out and thrown into the dumpster. Demolition is basically complete. Now it's time to start putting this house back together.
So that is Operation Dumpster complete.
There was an absolute ton of drywall repair on this house, but I'm gonna make it a pretty quick step in this video. There's no need to linger too long. I've got some individual videos on that process. The first thing I tackled was drywalling the new header beam in the living room that allows us to have this open concept layout now. I accidentally cut my side panels a little bit too long, so they extended past this bottom piece of drywall. I trimmed those back with my multi-tool, that way they were flush before installing my plastic corner bead. I personally am a huge fan of this stuff because it allows you to get really straight and square corners, even if you're not 1-800 Super Pro in your drywall skills. The spray adhesive installation method is go-to for me, especially if you don't have a huge project. You spray a little bit on your trim, a little bit on your wall, and you've got about 30 seconds or a minute of working time before everything sets to make sure you've got square, straight corners. Up next, I used drywall mesh tape everywhere that I've got seams. I also installed it on the corner bead. Even though that's not necessary, I just figured I'd do it. Why not? After that, I used joint compound on all my seams and corners. Taping and mudding drywall is a multi-step process. You're never gonna go for perfect right off the bat. Between coats, we're gonna sand down any high points and then backfill any of the negative spots until we build up a smooth, feathered finish. I mentioned there was a lot of drywall repair, and here you're seeing some in the dining room. On this wall, we did a quick skim coat over the whole thing because there was a little bit of inconsistency between the drywall panels. This is gonna help that blend away. And this tool, which is a 12-inch powered drywall sander, is an absolute game changer in my book. My drywall knife skills aren't perfect, and so having a powerful sander like this makes the entire process go by way quicker, and it's just way less effort. The TV wall in the living room is another one that I did a skim coat over the whole thing. After patching up the closet door, I wanted to make sure we had one solid plane across this whole wall. I did the same thing on the second coat of our header beam. That way it would be smooth all the way across. The skim coating blade was handy for this. And then I did a quick break to remove this inspirational quote from the wall.
I know a lot of people are sad to see this go, but I'm not.
I was certainly enjoying this moment.
Sorry.
The ceilings had a pretty heavy texture. It wasn't popcorn, but I did sand it down with the drywall sander. My dad was a big help on this too. And that's sanding done.
And after sanding, you can really see the seams in the drywall. So hopefully, once we throw a new texture on here, everything will be very flat.
My approach when texturing this house was to keep it light and keep it modern. That's why I'm doing a pretty smooth orange peel texture. Here, I'm adding a little bit of water to my joint compound. The idea is you want to be able to pass a finger through it and have it just close up. Then I added it to the texture sprayer that I rented from Home Depot for the day, and I got started. Spraying a texture isn't hard, but the one thing you want to make sure you're not doing is creating a texture pattern that people are going to be able to recognize once everything is dried and painted. So to prevent this, I worked in different motions. I would go up and down, side to side, diagonally, and in circular motions to prevent any kind of recognizable pattern. I do think it would have been cool to skim coat this entire house. It would have been a look, but I did that on my Joshua Tree renovation, and it took a couple of weeks on that place, and it's about half the size of this one. Not to mention, this house was built in the 1950s, and all of the drywall isn't perfect like new construction, so it would have been a really thick, really labor-intensive skim coat to do. Instead, I spent less than $100 on the sprayer from Home Depot, and it took one day to texture this whole place, and it looks way better than it did before. And now I'm excited to move on to paint.
The sprayer that I'm using today is called the Wagner Control Pro 170. And what's really great about it is that it can pull directly from a 5-gallon or 1-gallon paint bucket. So I'm expecting this to work really well. I'll be applying a coat of this Kills 2 primer before any paint. The drywall texture that I just put on is going to be super porous and absorb a lot of that first coat before it seals off. And that's why I'm using this, even though the paint I'm going to be using is paint and primer in one. I'm going to go ahead and install my sprayer tip and then tighten down the head. This makes it locked into where it can't move, and you want to make sure it's pressing forward. And you can rotate this for a vertical spray pattern or horizontal. I'm going to hold my gun parallel to the wall and about 12 inches away from it. Come on, that's super pro. I'm starting in here, which is one of the far corners of the house. That way my hose isn't going to be hitting wet paint on the walls as I move throughout the house. So I'm overlapping each one of my sprays by about half. That way I get full coverage with this primer. And you'll notice how I'm stopping and starting on each new pass rather than just holding the trigger down. If you do that, you're going to get big blobs and runs where you're changing directions, and you do not want that.
Looking back, I would have turned the paint flow up just a little bit on this primer coat. On some of the dark walls, you can see a little bit of the striping that was happening. It was nothing bad and nothing that you're gonna see in the finished result, but I would have liked to have applied a little bit more of this primer. If you are about to paint your house, I would make sure and check out Paint Life TV or the Idaho Painter on YouTube. They've got great videos on painting the interior or the exterior of your house. There were a lot of tutorials that I was watching getting prepped for this step of the process. And that's primer done, time for paint.
Color I'm using is called Whipped Cream. It's just a slightly soft off-white. There's no warm or cool tint to it.
It's just gonna provide us that clean, modern white feel without it being too stark like a doctor's office. Just like with the primer, I started in the back of the house and worked my way back to the front door. And with this paint coat, I finally got rid of the striping that I could see from the primer. And that made me feel great. And FYI, I could not recommend a paint suit, a spray sock, and a good respirator more. It really is a pretty messy process, and I had the windows all closed up.
And that is painting complete. We'll be back tomorrow to demask everything. Before I remove the masking tape and plastic, I'm gonna cut around the perimeter of the tape since this paint has been curing for a few days, and I don't wanna peel it away with the masking tape. Super pro.
On a few of the windows, there was a little bit of paint bleed underneath the new white paint. I'll be removing that later. Right now, I just want to focus on how this house almost feels like a completely different place. There used to be 8 different colors on the walls in this house.
I love that window.
I have learned from experience that masking is important, and you save way more time in the cleanup process than what you put in during the masking process. I decided to throw in some beauty shots here. It's just such a big improvement and milestone step in this project before we move to floors.
This old linoleum floor in the kitchen and dining room is raised just a little bit from the rest of the hardwood floors that go throughout the house. I want my subfloor to be level for my vinyl plank going down, so getting this out is step number 1.
This step of the project wasn't easy, but I'm not scared of putting in a little bit of elbow grease. I just focused on getting a couple tiles up at a time, and eventually I worked my way through the whole dining room. The tool that I'm using is actually a trim puller, but it's got a chisel edge and then this lever point that kind of peels up the tile as you scrape it. Good for baseboards, good for floors.
Awesome.
The kitchen was a repeat of the same story. I got those tiles pulled up and then moved over to the bathroom. I had already taken out some peel and stick tiles that were on top of these linoleum tiles. So far, we're at like 6 hours of scraping, but we finally got to the center of the kitchen. It was really stuck on right here. I did some experiments. I used the oscillating multi-tool, and that helped out a little bit. I also used a Sawzall with a chisel blade.
So the good news I've got is that these plywood subfloors are in good enough shape that we can reuse them. But anytime you're working in a remodel, you're sure to uncover some imperfections. I've got a couple of small gaps between some of these plywood panels that I want to fill, and just a couple low spots or dips. Like in the corner of this panel right here, where I'll have to backfill and level this out a bit.
And to do this, I'm gonna be using Henry Feather Finish, which is a really cool concrete product. It is literally made for this. It's got basically no aggregate, so you can apply it to a paper-thin finish, and it backfills any negative spaces in the seams between your subfloor and gives you a really flat substrate for your new flooring to go on top of.
I'm using Henry Unipro, this is 547, for this larger patch. And I'm starting on this end where I know the dip is biggest. So I'm just gonna trowel it and get it flat, get a rough spread going, and then I'm gonna screed it. I'm gonna add a little bit more concrete here to the front before it dries on me in the bucket, spread it out. We're gonna keep pressure on the sides, filling up the void in the center.
The house originally had a floor furnace, and this is where it used to be before it was taken out. And when they took it out, they put this new plywood down, but it was just a little bit low, so we needed to build it up.
And really quick, before we move on, I want to give a big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. Your one-stop shop for a custom website or online store, and the best part is you can build it yourself. And with cutting-edge design tools like Blueprint AI, Squarespace's AI-enhanced website builder, that has never been easier. Plus, you can get discovered fast with Squarespace's integrated SEO tools. They do all of the technical back-end work automatically to make sure that you show up more often on search engines and bring in more ideal customers. With Squarespace invoices, you get paid faster and can impress clients with on-brand invoices. Streamline your workflow from proposals to contracts, invoices, and seamless online payments all in one place. And with Squarespace email campaigns, you've got all the tools that you need to engage your clients, promote your services, and grow your business built in. So to learn more, make sure and follow my link down in the description. That's squarespace.com/modernbuilds. And when it's time to make your site live, don't forget to use my code MODERNBUILDS for 10% off your first site, store, or domain with Squarespace. As always, huge thanks to Squarespace and you all for watching. Now let's keep working on this renovation. So our floors are level, and now it's time to install this underlayment to get our plywood subfloor up to the same height as our hardwood flooring that we're gonna be installing our vinyl on top of. This quiet walk underlayment is gonna help with any of the inconsistencies in our subfloor seams and any adhesive left over. That way everything sits really flat. And this underlayment is great for vinyl because of its compression resistance. It also just so happens to be the right height to get our two surfaces on the same plane. I'll make sure and leave a link to this stuff down below.
This stuff really is knocking out two birds with one stone. Just as a quick spoiler, after I put down the new flooring, I could not tell at all where that seam between the hardwood flooring and where the old linoleum used to be. This is the exact thickness as the amount that the floor was raised. This stuff helps with sound and heat transfer. It's pretty neat. Once I got it all taped down, I knew that I was ready for floors.
Wow, that's super flat.
And if you're curious, I'm gonna be using LVP, Luxury Vinyl Plank Flooring. This is a part of the MODERN line from a company called Floret. And what's cool about Floret is they're a direct-to-consumer online flooring company.
Preparation is key when it comes to a luxury vinyl plank install. You want to make sure that whatever your subfloors are, they're flat to within 3/16 of an inch over 10 feet. And before you just start laying your planks down against one of your outside walls, it's best to lay out and take measure of your space to make sure that you're not going to have just a small sliver on the opposite wall or trouble around other obstacles. If you're working in a single room, this is really simple, but I want continuous floors throughout my whole house, and I want them centered right here in the middle of this hallway. I measured to find the middle of the hallway, and then I put a nail at the far end. Then I grabbed a chalk line and I went all the way to the other side of the house where I could snap that line as my reference point. Then I measured the distance off of that line to the wall that I want to start on. I measure that number by the width of the face of each plank, not including the tongue and groove, and that'll tell me how many planks plus how much extra I'll need to reach the wall. It's also very helpful to lay out your boards to visualize all of this math. I laid out my boards though, and the math was confirmed. I would be left with just a little sliver to cover the gap between that last full plank and the wall. So instead of centering my middle board in the middle of the hallway, I'm centering the seam between those two boards. This gives me about half of a plank's width from the edge of the last one to the wall. And for me, that was really easy to cut with my table saw.
With most luxury vinyl plank floors, you want a 1/4-inch gap between the flooring and the wall. That way there's room for expansion and contraction with humidity, weather between the seasons. That's why you see me installing these spacers on all of these boards in the first row.
This really is one of the coolest aspects of working with luxury vinyl is you can cut it with a razor blade. Just make sure that you score it really well with a good amount of downward pressure. That way you don't have to score it twice. Then you can just take it to an edge and snap it like that.
And what's so huge about this is you're not creating dust in your installation environment.
Super pro. Whenever I do this, first I like to make sure that my tongue and groove are locked in, and I'm gonna support right here to make sure they stay connected.
Once it's locked in along the edge, you can use a tapping block with a rubber mallet to lock it in with the previous board along the end. It should look something like this.
And then this is where the pull bar comes in handy.
If there's not room for a tapping block, you can use this with your rubber mallet to get your ends to lock in place along a wall or anywhere else that's hard to reach. Floors are a lot like a puzzle where the edges are the hardest part. Once you get those pieces down, the rest of your flooring should snap in place really quickly. I used a spacer at the end of each one of my boards along the wall to make sure that they weren't shifting left to right on me as I was knocking on rows that were past it. Doing a whole house with no seams does make this a little bit tougher. You're gonna wanna make sure and get a couple of big bulk packs of spacers, and I'll leave those linked below on Amazon. The color of floor that I chose is mostly a gray wash, but there is just a little bit of a natural wood tone that it picks up, especially in daylight, so that it's a little bit warmer than the walls. This lets things like the kitchen cabinets and furniture be the main pop of wood tone in the house, but once again, it keeps it from being too stark like white and gray. At this point in the project, I've gone all the way across the house from the living room to the dining room, but I had to section off where the cabinets broke into the kitchen area. So now we're gonna move back over there and put those floors down. Installation around cabinets is a little bit more tricky because the trim that's gonna go here is thinner than the baseboard trim I'm gonna be using. So I shot more for an 1/8-inch expansion joint. That way the trim is eventually gonna be able to cover fine. After that, I started going down the hallway, the opposite side of the house, so that I could put floors down in all of the bedrooms and the other bathrooms. And it is time once again for some more beauty shots because this house has taken on a completely different vibe now that we've got the floors in. It's not looking like a huge construction zone, it looks like a house that's getting close to done. We still got a long way to go though, so make sure and stay tuned. So far, each step has been whole house steps, but now we're gonna focus on the kitchen. I'm expanding the cabinets so that we get more storage. I'm also making the peninsula and the countertops bigger. These new upper cabinets are going to be surrounding a microwave range hood combination that should save us some countertop space. And over by the refrigerator, we're putting in a whole new cabinet wall. This is going to add a lot of functionality. I've got to give another shout out to my dad for holding these cabinets in place while I was getting them screwed in. We're a pretty decent team when we're working together. And one cool thing is we're getting to reuse this cabinet. It used to be the upper cabinet over the stove, but we're going from 36 to 30-inch wide.
Sweet.
This is the extra cabinet that I bought, which matches the others to expand the eat-in kitchen peninsula.
This looks way better. Such a huge improvement.
Adding all of this storage is super functional and makes the kitchen feel bigger, especially on the right side, rather than just having a floating fridge on a wall. Inside of this box is the microwave range hood combo that I mentioned earlier. It is time to get it installed. I needed to drill a couple of holes in the front of the cabinet for the mounting bolts, and towards the back, I created the opening for the vent. This hole that I drilled with the Forstner bit is where the power cord will feed through, and the rest of this is where the vent goes. Out of the factory, the microwave is set up so that it vents and filters through the front, but if you want it to kick out through the vent on top, you just need to point the fan up. I screwed this in place along with the ducting clip. I used my drywall saw to cut an opening in the ceiling where the ducting is going to feed through. And up on the roof, I removed a couple shingles so that I could create a hole right in line with that one that we made in the ceiling. I used my jigsaw for this after making a quick pilot hole, and it worked great. Then I slid in my roof vent cap so everything was lined up, added sealant, and then pinned it down with nails. And I used some of that Roofer's Choice sealant to stick down shingles around the area where I was working. I was really happy when I went back downstairs and saw how everything was basically perfect in how it was lined up. I needed to make a quick hole in the top of the cabinet so that this ducting could feed through, but that was basically it. It was a little tricky getting the ducting fed through the cabinet since they were already installed, but by cutting it into a few pieces, I made it manageable, and then I made a quick drywall cover, and this is gonna get a quick spray texture after I put it in place so that once I paint it, it blends in with everything else. I think this looks great, and the microwave range hood combo is convenient. Now it's time for counters.
Really quick, I'm gonna get a rough measurement of how many square feet I'll need approximately. That way we'll get better pricing info while we're shopping.
Oh, that's a good looking one.
Bianco Aspen, and then you have the super jumbo slab.
All right, and you said what price on this one?
This is gonna be 52
Okay.
installed.
$52 per square foot installed is a good price in my area, and I was excited to see this really cool laser system that they use to measure the countertops and the walls so that they can then take that to their CNC and custom cut everything. This completely takes away the need to make a physical template in place. Instead, they do everything digitally, and it's way faster and technically more accurate. I appreciate Carlos letting me film in his shop big time. The next day, his crew came by to install the countertops in place. And even though I shouldn't have been, I was still a little bit surprised to see how everything was perfectly scribed to the walls and the cabinets. I went with a white marble-looking quartz, and I love it.
Oh yeah, perfect.
It's got that clean, white, modern look with enough veining that it looks interesting. And I think it's really useful now having the countertop extend the kitchen peninsula so that people can eat there whenever they want. Oh, and check out that kitchen sink. Now it's time for Backsplash. I chose a beautiful ceramic mosaic tile in these elongated hexagon shapes. And my favorite part about it is it's got a handmade tile finish. To me, this is the perfect blend between traditional and modern, which I'm going for in this house. To make installation easier, I'm cutting the bottom tips off of all of my first row of tiles. That way, I've got a flat bottom that I'm not gonna need to fill in. After pre-cutting all of my first row, I mixed up my thin set and started installation right in the middle. This is gonna be behind the stove, and I screwed on a ledge so that this is even with the rest of the countertops. As I went, some pieces needed cutouts for things like outlets, and to do that, I used a diamond wheel on my angle grinder. The tile that I was using was prone to flaking a little bit when I cut it, so I used painter's tape to prevent that. I also used a Sharpie to mark where I wanted the top of each of my rows to go, and so I could use spacers between the bottom of the tile and the countertop to make sure everything was at the right height.
So far, our bottom row is looking great, and we're down to our last wall. I'm gonna cut down a full piece that's gonna go into the corner and match the other sheet of tiles. That way we get a really clean, mitered look once we get grout applied.
To finish out the ends, I cut some trim pieces also on my tile saw. Just be careful that the blade doesn't pull this away from you. This just gives the edges of our backsplash a clean, finished look. It also gives us a template we need to cut the rest of our pieces to. The next day, after the thin set cured, I applied grout. This is gonna go in between all the spaces of the tile, and I went with a gray color.
So I'm gonna start by getting my grout into all of the joints. I wanna press it in, and I also wanna work in multiple directions.
The idea is you want the grout, which is a little grippy, to be pushed in every direction so that there's no negative spaces. After you've done that on a workable section, you'll come back with a sponge to clean up the surface of the tile and also feather all of your grout joints. If you've still got a little bit of haze once this grout cures, you can come back with a cement grout haze remover, go figure, and clean off the surface of your tiles. This is what I needed to do, and it gave me a really great result. I then applied sealer so that stainage isn't a problem. This soaks into the tile and grout and repels water and stains. Everything's looking great. The rest of the appliances in this kitchen have the same stainless steel finish as the microwave range hood combo that we installed. This refrigerator was a little tricky getting through the front door, but it is a huge upgrade for the kitchen. I really love the French doors on top and the drawer freezer on bottom. That's my preference, I think. And big thank you to Hisense for providing all the appliances for this renovation. It looks great. The new stove is a perfect match with the microwave above it, and one thing I think that's cool is that it's got an air fry feature.
Super pro.
It was really convenient. The new dishwasher went into the same opening as the old one, and I was able to use the same drain hose and supply hose. After getting everything screwed in, this is how it looked.
Perfect. I got enough new outlets and switches for the whole house, so let's go ahead and get the kitchen updated. And what's cool is these have USB built in.
Updating an outlet or a switch is a simple task, especially if you're on the end of a run. Remember, your black wire always goes to the gold connector and the white wire goes to the silver screw. And if you've got multiple wires or anything more complicated, remember to take a picture before you unscrew it. That way, when you put it back together, you can reference that in case anything gets jumbled up. The only thing that made this difficult is the old electrical boxes in the house are a little bit smaller than what's standard today, and these outlets with the USBs are a little bit bigger, and so there wasn't a ton of room for the wires to stuff behind it, but we were able to make it work and get the cover put on. While I was at this, I also updated all of the switches to dimmer switches with a cool square paddle shape. This is largely the same process. I'm definitely not someone to give electrical advice, but if you've got the original photo to look at, it is really easy to copy. This is where I should probably say, if you're not an electrician, just hire one. And now I can officially say the kitchen is complete. I'm gonna play a few beauty shots so that you can get a vibe for the space. All of the appliances are updated, the footprint is larger, and the storage is maximized. Before, this kitchen had a ton of different colors and it was really closed off, but now we're living in an open concept floor plan, and that is a really big upgrade. I love the natural wood tone on the cabinets. It really balances out the gray wash in the floors, but we were able to keep a somewhat modern or contemporary vibe with these appliances, the backsplash, our cool light fixtures, even this sink. A single basin is the way to go. The front porch, or really the whole front of the house, needs some TLC. It's just been a long time since it's had any love, and the weather has kind of gotten to it.
And there are quite a bit of imperfections and voids in this concrete. So to fix them, I'm gonna use this vinyl concrete patcher by Quikrete.
It's a pretty cool product, and I made sure that I installed it so that I set a tiny bit proud of the surface. That way I could sand it back down with a honing block and get it flush with the rest of the concrete. This is just an abrasive brick on a handle. I think it's 20 grit. To make sure that the new concrete paint bonded well, I applied a coat of this bonding primer with a roller.
And now it's time to paint. I've got slate gray, porch, patio, and floor paint. This is really similar to what was on here, flaking away, but hopefully all of our prep and priming is gonna keep this stuck on here for a long time.
You can use either a 1/4 or a 3/8 inch nap roller depending on how smooth your concrete is, and it's always best to cut in your edges with a brush before you fill in the middle area. I applied a couple of coats and I was pumped with how it came out.
Nice.
What you see me doing right now is wrapping the old beams with some cedar fence post boards that I mitered on each edge so that we get a good continuous grain wrap all the way around. And after some cedar natural tone stain, these looked like new beams. To match this freshened up look, I cut some more cedar plank boards that I'm going to be using to create some horizontal slat shutters that are just for vanity on each side of the window. I spaced each slat out 1/8 of an inch, and then I made a mitered frame that goes around it. I also applied a couple coats of the same stain that I used on the posts to these shutters, cedar natural tone. To hang these, I used a basic cleat system. On the top and the bottom, I attached a board with some Tapcon screws into the bricks that I could then nail the shutters onto. This gave me the chance to line everything up, making sure that they were perfectly plumb before setting them in place.
Check that out. We're already looking so much better.
Big shout out to my mom here for giving me a hand painting these planters. I watered this paint down just a little bit so a little bit of the texture and tone of the stone would show through, and now it's time for the driveway. I hired this out to the pros because I wanted it done well. We put a new 3-inch top on top of the old asphalt driveway, which was basically crumbling away. They started at the garage and made sure that the transition there looked nice and was all packed in place. And once that asphalt paver got going, they were moving quick. This is a really awesome machine, and it always adjusts to make sure that your depth is nice and you're staying flat, and the edges are packed in where you want. While this machine was running, behind them, they also had the steam roller packing all of the asphalt down. They rolled over the driveway multiple times to make sure this was condensed and packed as tight as possible. This is going to prevent it from cracking and from weeds or grasses from growing through.
Everything's happening so fast.
Here's a look at the driveway during the last pass with the roller. You can see it going up to the shop.
Wow. So nice. Give me your reaction.
Looks great, man.
It honestly looks good, doesn't it?
Beats what was there by far.
The first step in restoring this back deck was pressure washing it. I was able to clean up this wood a lot. I was actually able to remove the old stain, so it was like I had raw wood again. This is some locally milled cedar, and that's why all of the boards are different width. I'm really not worried about that, but I did want to trim the edges of all of the deck. I don't know if they were all the same length when it got installed, and if they've just dried and some of them have shrunk a little bit, but either way, I just wanted to clean everything up before I went underneath the deck to add a few piers to take away a little bit of the wobble that was in the center of each of the 3 sections. I started by jacking up the whole deck a little bit, that way I could slide some cement blocking underneath, and this will now support each of those sections that I've jacked up. And even though it really looks like I'm sandwiching those boards in there, when I lower the jack, you can see how everything basically shifted down about 1/4 or 1/2 of an inch. And we are way more sturdy. This is Super Pro. I have definitely decided that cedar natural tone is my go-to whenever I'm applying it onto cedar. It's just that natural warm tone that you want to get out of this type of wood. Now, I don't know if this is because the wood's a little bit older, but I got a little bit of a darker finish out of this stain. On the front of the house, I used the Valspar cedar natural tone, which was a little bit lighter, and on the back deck, I used Bear cedar natural tone, which seems like it might be a little darker. Either way, when it dried, it got this really rich color. I love it. This is now a vibe. I was smart enough to hire the pros to do soffit lighting all the way around the house. This was something that I've never done before, but after seeing it done, it's something that I might be trying on my Joshua Tree cabin. Everywhere we wanted a recessed light, we drilled a 3 3/8 inch hole and fed wires connecting all of them on one switch. The push to connect connectors make all of this relatively simple. You just connect the black to black and the white to white and ground to ground and work all your way around the house until you get to the end of the chain where you'll wire up a switch. And we chose to put on a dimmer. Lighting like this definitely wasn't standard on a house in the 50s, and it really gives it a modern upgrade. It's now bathroom time. After I repainted the bathtub white in the master bedroom, I installed this cool LED mirror in front of the vanity. It's got 3 different color temperature options. Then I installed a new toilet. This one is a modern toilet where you don't see any of the plumbing on the side. It made the installation a little bit more complicated, but nothing too tough. There just wasn't a ton of access to the mounting bolts. I installed a couple of simple floating shelves that I got on Amazon for a little bit of storage, and then put up a new shower curtain. This one's got a cool window that lets the light pass through so that it can hit the vanity area. And we went with this double sink countertop, so it will hopefully be more convenient getting ready with multiple people in the morning. Here's a look at what the bathroom looks like with a little bit of staging. Definitely an upgraded space, even though we kept the original shower surround. And we're going to be repeating the horizontal design of this vanity in the spare bathroom. A long time ago, towards the beginning of the video, I mentioned that we're turning this toilet nook into a custom shower, and now's the time to tackle that. I had a little extra demo to do, getting the walls down to the studs and the subfloors removed. We took out the old toilet flange and shifted the drain over towards the center of this opening as much as possible. And after putting down new subfloor, I installed my shower drain. I decided to do my own mortar bed instead of messing with the Schluter system for a couple reasons. One, I had done it before, and the other reason is because the drain isn't in the center of this opening and it's a little bit of an oddball shape. This PVC liner goes on top of that mortar bed pre-slope, and then once that's on, you do an additional slope, and this is what the tile is going to adhere onto. As you can tell, my mix is a little watery here, but everything dried fine. So the next day, once it was all cured, I could move to putting cement board backer on the walls. The steps for taping and bedding this are a lot like drywall, except you're going to use thin set instead of joint compound. And this stuff that I'm applying to the cement board is called Red Guard, and it's a waterproofing membrane that goes in between the tile and that cement backer to make sure that water really never gets to it. I started by tiling the floor, and I'm going with this river pebble mosaic with a white grout, and I think that it's going to be an awesome modern look that really goes with our white and wood tone vibe around the rest of the house. And on the walls, I'm using these killer large format tiles that have a vertical wood slat design. I won't lie, it was kind of tricky installing such large tiles in a small space because there were quite a few things to work around, like the prefab niche and the shower fixtures.
A perfect fit.
One strong recommendation that I would make for large format tile installation is to use high quality wedge spacers, the kind that keep all of the faces of the tile on the same plane. These are the lash spacers that you can get from Home Depot. And here you can see me attempting a miter wrap on the tiles around the curb. It actually ended up working really great. So then I could move on to grouting all of the seams, which was a little bit of a mess. I could also go ahead and put in the plug and play recessed lights that we had already done all the rough-in work for. This is getting better and better as we go. In this bathroom, I decided I wanted all of the fixtures to be flat black. It would be a cool little vibe in this space. And I went with this killer huge shower rainfall head.
Dun, 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 dun.
This is my first custom shower myself, and I'm very happy with the result. Neither of the bathrooms had exhaust fans before, so when I hired electricians, I also had these put in. I'm just putting on the cover. And now I can lay the last pieces of flooring for the whole house. I had to wait to put these down before the tile in the shower was complete. And next I could install my baseboard trim, and I'm using square craftsman trim all the way around the house. After caulking all of my seams and filling the nail holes, I put on a couple of coats of paint, the same stuff that I applied on the walls. And here you see me pre-drilling a couple of holes for the shower door hardware that I'm about to mount. This also has a flat black finish, so it matches everything else that I'll be putting in this room, and the frame for this door has a couple of inches of adjustability, which is really convenient. I think it's much nicer than just doing a shower curtain. Now you know I've got to go with a flat black light fixture in this bathroom, and I found one that's got 3 miniature frosted globe lights that I think look so neat. This floating vanity that I'm installing is super neat because it's got extra countertop on the right side. That way I can still center the sink bowl and keep the doorway open. I built this custom cabinet box that goes underneath out of 3/4 inch oak plywood, and I built it so it's got the same horizontal slatted design as the other bathroom. Now let's take a trip over to the master bedroom where we're going to be building out that custom closet that we expanded the space for earlier. First, I needed to attach the track that goes onto the floor. Then I installed the rail that goes on the ceiling. The system that I picked up from IKEA is really neat in the way that they've got these 4-panel doors, and you can change out the panels for an updated look anytime you want. The panels that I went with give this room that pop of wood tone that it needs, and it came with the full closet organization system. Here you can just see me putting in one of the closet rods, but I'm about to go to the wide shot where you can see the whole thing.
So this is a ton of storage and it looks awesome.
It was now time to tackle the trim in this room, and in hindsight, I think I might have preferred to install MDF trim around this house. A few of the baseboard trim pieces I had a decent amount of warp from just sitting for a couple of weeks that I really had to wrestle with whenever I was nailing things down. The living room transformation has already come a long way, but I hired the electricians to do 2 things here. One, we shifted over the ceiling fan outlet to the center of the room. The other thing I had them do is put in recessed lights in this space. They used this cool hole saw with a dust shroud to prevent making a big mess. And once the holes were drilled, they ran Romex between all of the holes, just like when they did the eave lighting outside. Here you can get a decent look at one of the J boxes with the push to connect connectors for the wiring. And one convenient thing is these boxes just sit up on top of the drywall in the attic. I hired the electricians to do all of the ceiling fans in the house because I wanted to make sure that they were mounted securely, and I'm very happy with the wood tone blades that I picked.
Booyah!
And for convenience, we added some more outlets around the house. I had already updated a lot of the outlets to that combination USB outlet that I mentioned earlier, but any of them left over, we went ahead and switched out during this as well. A lot of older homes kind of leave you bummed out with the amount of outlets, and I wanted to fix that. We added quite a few around the place.
And the original air conditioning cover just feels a little bit outdated compared to this new modern one. I'm gonna unscrew this old bracket that the cover connects onto, and then I'll insert my new vents, and I'm adding some screws to make sure that this is super secure and it's never gonna fall out.
You can screw and unscrew this cap to regulate the airflow, and now we're moving on to painting the front door. I applied a few coats of this soft orange, and then I cut 45 degrees around the rest of the door casing, and I put this trim in place. I'm using 2.5-inch long brad nails. I want to make sure that these sink into the 2x4 studs behind the drywall. I did the same thing on the rest of the baseboard trim. This is officially the final construction step of the house. There's no longer any unfinished surfaces. That is house complete. Let's check out these befores. As you'll remember, the house was in pretty rough shape cosmetically, even though it was perfectly livable. There was a million different paint colors on the walls. Almost every room had a different type of baseboard trim. It was definitely time for a renovation, so now let's check out the after tour.
So welcome to the living room. The newly defined seating area looks and functions great. Not to mention, we absorbed a closet from the wall across from me into the master bedroom, and now we got a huge TV wall.
And the addition of recessed lights makes it feel way more modern inside.
Now I'm gonna walk where there used to be a wall into the newly expanded kitchen. We have updated every fixture in this space and expanded the counters and cabinets. And now we've got an eat-in kitchen peninsula instead of that nook over there. I think that these stools are killer. I love that brown leather and natural wood tone to balance out with the gray floors and the slat wall on the front of the bar top. I installed a very fancy modern sink with a single basin and tons of cool little features. My favorite is the cup rinser. Really convenient for coffee mugs. This backsplash with the cool mosaic and the gray grout is one of my favorite DIYs in the house. I think it came out awesome, and it does a lot of lifting, tying in these countertops with the rest of the space. Now we're going this way to the corner of the house into the spare bathroom, where we added a shower to turn this into a functional bathroom for getting ready in the morning. The key style difference in this room is that I did all black fixtures with a low gloss matte finish. It looks great with the wood look slatted tile in the shower, which matches the house theme. Here we are in the dining room. A couple of the before shots are playing just to get a feel for the space. And now, here's the afters, way better. And how about this light fixture with a ton of little globes with a brass finish, which matches the kitchen. Perfect for over the dining table. I updated the back door with the blinds in the window insert. That way, when you open it, they don't bounce around. Obviously, it's also very nice for privacy. Without this closet, I wouldn't have removed the living room closet because you do need somewhere for a vacuum and coats when people visit. And this brings us to the hallway. And check out this bathroom now. There is so much more natural light, and we installed recessed lights in the ceiling along with a bathroom fan that's got a light as well. Another neat thing is that this is a double vanity so that two people can be getting ready. This was actually the inspiration for the whole slatted theme in the house. It was just the fit for that mid-century modern vibe. Classic modern builds. And up here might be the coolest feature. It is an LED mirror with an anti-fog feature. There's 3 different color temperatures and it's dimmable. It just makes you look pretty decent. And at this point in the video, it's time to start checking out bedrooms, the master first. Before, this master bedroom did not have much going for it. It was painted super dark, so it felt really small. The only upside was this big window. And now, look at this bedroom. It's modern, it's fresh, and tell me it does not feel larger. I chose to go with a queen-size bed when I built this custom one, but as you can tell, there is plenty of room for a king. You would just eat into this mirror wall. And now, it's time to check out the spare bedrooms. These 2 back bedrooms are almost the same square footage, but the one difference is the closet size. And these sliding mirror closet doors might be the coolest premium feature in each of the rooms, along with the closet organization systems with room for hanging, open storage, and drawers to maximize storage. And with this remote, I can control the DIY rechargeable smart shades that I installed from SmartWings. And what's awesome is I've got shades on every window in the house, even the big ones in the master bedroom and the living room. That wouldn't have been cheap, so big thanks to SmartWings. The final bedroom is across the hall in this corner of the house.
This also had that super dark matching paint as in the master bedroom. And this room has an even more dramatic before and after. One thing I realized I haven't talked about at all are these awesome gray wash luxury vinyl plank floors from Floret. They're like 90% gray with very little natural wood tone, but the before shots on the floors throughout the house show why I put down these new ones. It is for sure that the front of the house took on a bit more of a transformation than the backyard did. In the before shots, you can see how rough all the concrete was. The driveway was torn to pieces, and the sidewalk leading up was also in a bunch of small pieces. But now, all that has changed. We do have a brand new, solid sidewalk leading up to our freshened up front porch. We added a pop of natural wood tone with all of the cedar accents and painted the concrete of the porch itself and these planters because the original stone just looked dingy. It wasn't worth trying to preserve. I've also got no business doing asphalt work, and that's why I hired out a new asphalt layer on top of the old driveway that was here. Plus a big pad that we added in front of the shop building. That is some big time curb appeal. And these lights going around the house on the eaves was another one of those things that I hired the pros to do because I wanted it done right. And I'm gonna play some shots of the house at night so you can see the impact that it makes. I swear this house keeps feeling less and less like it's from the 50s. And if you're still here, that means you have made it to the end of the renovation, and I really appreciate you watching. I really don't know what to think about a compilation video like this. The playlist with all the individual build videos will be right here. Thanks a ton for joining me on this wild ride called Mike's First Flip. Bye, everybody.